Sweat Equity Podcast and streaming show, pragmatic entrepreneurial advice and dick jokes, hosted by me, Law Smith, and them, Eric Reginger.
Oing, oing.
That's your pronoun, bro. Hashtag GirthyRI, hashtag 69B2B, hashtag Sweat Equity on iTunes, Spotify. Hey, Spotify, hook us up with that Joe Rogan, Bill Simmons deal, please.
So easy.
You can listen to us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Laughable, YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, LinkedIn. This episode is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Try expressvpn.com/sweat. Get 3 months free on an annual subscription. Don't let people know where you've been browsing.
Don't even.
Eric, you're my go-to. I die, you have to find this laptop on my phone.
I will have so many tasks.
You got a lot of stuff to cover up.
I gotta get through if you die. Do
but
not die.
To save you some time in the probate of all that, ExpressVPN, go to tryexpressvpn.com/sweat. I can look up all the weird questions I have. Like, sometimes I'm too stupid to Google things, and that might come up like I'm having a stroke, in my browser history. I don't want that. You can choose the country you want to ping from. Do you know that some people look at business emails where your IPs come from so they can tell when you're working, when you're not? So if you pick an IP, try expressvpn.com/sweat, get 3 months free, and you can pick the country you want your IP to be located.
I'll go from Australia.
There you go. What was that accent?
Do Australia.
You got that?
I think we do Australia.
I'm going to run down. That's our headline sponsor. I'm going to run down our 4 other sponsors real quick. Tryroan.com/sweat. Get 20% off. Use that link in the code word bridge20 to get off your fitness wear. You need a business phone line? Try grasshopper.com/sweat. Get $75 off an annual plan. You need some accounting software? Go freshbooks.com/sweat. 30-day free trial. And Warby Parker, warbyparkertrial.com/sweat. Get 5 free pairs to try on at home. That hooks up this podcast. We got David Albright on this podcast.
What? No!
On this what? You can hit him up at Dave at abundantbs.com, and his number is 727-258-1424. We give it out in the podcast, but I want to make sure I give it out in the beginning of this show because he's going to save your business some goddamn money. Can I get a hot and
What about my sweat equity?
Sweat equity. Sweat equity.
My sweat equity. My sweat equity.
Sweat equity.
What about my sweat equity?
Soft. Am I doing a rundown or are we just going into it?
We can do the.
Let's
do the ad factor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just going to go. We usually do, I don't know if you got to listen to the podcast, but we usually do a little rundown with some NFL music in the background. Just going down a little advertising, but we'll skip that and just kind of get into talking to you just so you don't have to sit through 3 minutes of that. So, David, and we'll intro you in the intro, but why don't you give everybody a little bit of your background? Because I could try to do your bio, but I think I'll butcher it. Every time even if I memorize someone's bio on this show and then we go over it, we still miss something. So we just do the lazy podcaster thing where we go, why don't you give us a little of your bio?
How about you do it?
You give us your LinkedIn profile.
Okay, so 2 minutes or?
Well, whatever. Take as much time as you think.
So my background, I worked in corporate America for 25 years. I worked for a large aerospace company, and I focused on technology and telecommunications. And after 20 plus years there, I left the Boeing company and struck out on my own. And was really at that time there, I never was really a coder. I was more of a business guy that understood how the money worked. And I took that basically out to Main Street about 5 years ago, looking at how to help companies with operational efficiency. And so a couple of years ago, I moved from Seattle to Florida and discovered along the way that really the Main Street businesses were missing out on tremendous opportunities of cash flow and profits that were available to them, mostly just due to either lack of knowledge or lack of access to the correct resources. So today, what I do is I work with business owners and professionals in helping them identify where they're leaving profits and cash on the table that they're entitled to keep instead of giving it away to the government or to another supplier or vendor. And that's where I focus my energy today, is helping those business owners and professionals.
Yeah, you're like a pure consultant, and I tend to not use that word because it can go anywhere from Rodan and Fields consultant with garage inventory all the way to like, you're a legitimate high level consultant. And the way we met was we kind of have the same target audiences of manufacturers in the area. And then you and I started talking at a networking event our friend Justine put on, and it seemed like, you have we both kind of had a good knowledge base in each respective sector, but I always marvel at the guys that can go in and do kind of like, in a way, I was telling you what I wanted to do with kind of marketing, and a little bit of this podcast is I like saying being the Susie Orman of digital market. I just like, because I think she's quirky, and I think it's funny. She's always got these like little did you know kind of facts, and I think
You just think nobody else is gonna take the Susie Orman of blank,
well,
whatever. Like,
no, but I think
you just want to lock
all
that
right,
one in.
if you want to break down the metaphor, why it's a little funny is no dude's gonna compare themselves to a chick when they're going, yeah, I went there, yeah. But I'm saying, like,
You said it.
but she's got that quirky Midwestern, here's how you can save some money by, taking all your baking sheets and piling them together after you use them, and you have a boat after
Great,
10
it's yours.
years. Like
That one's yours.
She'll make up stuff. I just like that discovery facts. I like the things where you're like, here's a knowledge base that, here's what I do. It's Moneyball. I'm finding inefficiencies that no one knows about that are not in plain sight necessarily, but they're there if you dig enough, and that's kind of what your milieu is. That's what you're about.
What would be a good example?
Yeah. What's
I'm
a
just curious,
easy example?
Yeah, a perfect example of what you're doing.
Let's talk a great easy example. And I approach this from a diagnostic perspective, where I will go in and I will talk with a business owner. Let's take a manufacturing company. I know that's where you have some expertise. I will go in and talk with a manufacturing owner, and the first place I'll look is, where can I save him $4,000, $40,000, $400,000? Is it going to be in property tax incentives? Is it going to be in hiring incentives? With COVID-19, there's tremendous amounts of savings that are going to be available this year on employee retention. Or is it looking at how do they handle their cash flow, and how do they legitimately, without ticking off their clientele, accelerate their cash flow to get that into their bank account much quicker. So I'll go in and I'll go through an assessment with them to find these areas that they'll say, well, why doesn't my CPA know this, or why doesn't my controller know this? These are generally specialized areas that you have to really dig down into and say, oh, here's the opportunity.
Yeah, what he's awesome at is what you would look at all their financials and go, okay, you guys don't know about maybe this tax incentive. You guys don't know about this grant that you could possibly get. You don't know that. And I don't know if you throw out numbers like, employee retention, something you brought up, that old adage of it's so much harder to find a new employee than just spending a little effort in retaining. When you could probably look over year, hey, when you guys invested a little bit in your employee retention, you had less churn rate on people leaving, something like that.
Well, that's one piece of it. Now let's take, and I'm going to focus a little bit because we're so real in COVID-19 right now.
Yeah.
And for the first time, what it will do is that you can actually redirect some of that money that you would have to pay in taxes legitimately to saving money with keeping your employees, not having to go out and look for new employees. But if you keep those employees, they're going to cut your tax roll way back due to COVID-19 coming forward. It's going to be anywhere from 3 to 12 times larger than what we saw with PPP.
Yeah. And
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
in the state of Florida, we're forecasting that in the state of Florida, it's going to be 4.5 times larger than what we did in PPP in the state of Florida.
Now we have people outside of Florida that listen to this, but we use Tampa always as Tampa is the index city, index market in the country. So you can kind of extrapolate out anything we're kind of going
As
hyper
above,
local.
so below.
Yeah, or why Hooters and Outback franchises started here. Just kind of real index middle of the country. Actually, New Haven, Connecticut. I think that's where Yale is. That's the #1 index if you want to look at demographics. But
I don't.
right after that, you don't look at that stuff. That's so fun. What? So everybody in my world's talking pivot. That's the new branding. What's your brand? Was 2019 word I despised. That was used too much. I would say pivot is going to be the new marketing term, and kind of LinkedIn. You're going to see a lot of influencers using that in the business world of, all that kind of stuff.
A lot of Ross from Friends moving the couch memes.
Is there? I don't know.
Oh my God.
I don't remember.
Never mind.
I don't even know the reference.
Lots of people.
I tried to build on it and I had
that
nothing.
reference hard.
Yeah, solid. Friends is a terrible show. I can't get over that.
I'd say it was a good show.
Yeah, so I couldn't get over, even as 12 when we were 12 when it was out. We're there's no way you have that apartment.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So what as people kind of recover from all the economic downturn of COVID-19, what can business owners and professionals do to kind of accelerate their own recovery?
Well, I'd say the first thing they can do is start to look at who are the people that have access to the knowledge, and finding about what you can do to claim and recognize these opportunities to increase your cash flow. So one of the first things you can do is that the CARES Act freed up a lot of money that allows you to reduce the amount you pay in payroll taxes. How do you take advantage of that right away? Because that's money you would have to pay out on every single payroll that now all of a sudden you can reduce that significantly. There are changes to the CARES Act where if you look at property tax incentives, all of a sudden where you couldn't claim money from the past, you can actually get refund checks from the government on your property tax incentives. In the past, it was always future going forward. Now they'll allow you to go back up to 5 years. So if you're profitable in 2014 to 2019 and you own your building, all of a sudden you can get some of those taxes back in a refund check. So this is big money on the table that will help business owners. This is hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to business owners, depending upon the building they have, that they can claim right away, within weeks.
Can I go a little bit more, a little deeper with that specific example? Just for a broader kind of sense, in states that don't have state income tax, usually the property taxes are kind of the way it kind of sets itself out. So if I were in Texas, Florida, those kind of states, Tennessee, I think doesn't have it. Are those the kind of states that would benefit from something like that if you're a business owner that you own the property, typically?
Actually, there's going to be two pieces to that.
Okay.
There's going to be the federal element to that,
Sure.
in which everybody qualifies. But then what we find out there is in property taxes, about 20% of the buildings out there are overtaxed by as much as 15 to 20%. Again, that's an automatic cost savings to get that money back.
Yeah.
Overtaxed is interesting.
Is that
what is that? Is that something that's accounted for all the time, or is that something we need to be checking on ourselves if we own property?
Is that like when we see in tax time every year we see this in tax time, a macroeconomics professor or economist will throw it out there. Hey, the United States giving you a tax refund. They're getting a loan on it because essentially they're overtaxing an individual. Is that kind of a similar thing?
Yeah, you're overtaxing a piece of property. And so really every 7 years, that piece of property from a commercial perspective should be evaluated as to whether it's still in line. And what we find is about 20% of the time, 18 to 22% of the time, it's being overtaxed by 15 to 20%. And it can be adjusted backwards.
Yeah, and see
But
that.
if we're not checking that, they're not going back and adjusting anything, are they? It's a matter
Correct.
of
No. So say you've owned a building for, 10 years, 15 years, and you've never challenged the taxes. There's nothing to keep it in alignment. It just keeps, compounding, whether it's at 1, 2, 3% every year.
What if you acquired one? Acquired one a couple of years ago.
specific question. So let's say you want to challenge these taxes. Would it be an appraisal situation? What all would you be looking at in terms of just paperwork and all that you'd need to do to challenge?
It's similar to an appraisal situation, but really what you're really starting with is looking at the comps in the area. And what you really want to do is you want to work, again, everything I do is working with specialists, because a lot of this stuff, we don't have the resources at our fingertips as consumers, as business owners. A dentist didn't get in business to figure out his commercial property taxes, or a restaurateur or a manufacturer. So that's why you look at different specialists to say, okay, what can I do? And then you can look at, let's just do a simple assessment here that costs very little to nothing. And then if there's something in that very simple assessment, then we can figure out, okay, how aggressive do we want to be in going after it? But I've come to the belief that specialists are pretty much about the cheapest thing you can do out there, because now you don't have to go figure out how to do it yourself. You can lean on them and their experience to get that best result.
Yeah, you need to be a generalist that can, delegate out to find it. Look, and one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the show is to kind of promote you, because you and I have talked a lot in the last couple months, and you've got what we like to call little nuggets that just finding those. Look, that some people listening might not be able to kind of imagine what that example of a commercial property, because they probably don't. A lot of people don't own property for their business, but that's a huge, huge thing if you do actually own that, or one day you want to own property for your business.
Yeah, just the dollars that are being exchanged in terms of for commercial properties, and then the taxes involved in it, and whatever other stupid bureaucratic stuff that's being charged on it, and it just goes kind of under the radar, because we have to do that. We have to have these commercial properties, but it's I haven't heard of this. I'm kind of blown away that you could challenge your property taxes. I didn't know this.
And so to understand, there's multiple opportunities here. There's some at the federal level, some at the state level. And so, but the answer is yes, you can challenge, and at the state level. And the answer is there are entitlements at the federal level. I can find cost savings and benefits. Let's just take a macro average of about $75,000 per million. Okay.
Per million in revenue.
No, per million of the purchase price of.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
Of the purchase price of the building. So now all of a sudden, if you can go back 5 years and you can use that money that you paid in taxes and start to reclaim it, now all of a sudden you got a nice check coming from the IRS.
That you should spend in marketing. Yeah. It's where you alley-oop it.
Who cares what you spend it on? Now your money.
No, spend it back in employee retention. Whatever. Spend it.
Podcast advertising, whatever.
Yeah, what you want to advertise on this show? 75 will get you a couple ads.
Yeah, I'm working with a restaurant out in San Francisco right at the moment, doing that very thing, and where we're looking at, it's a small restaurant. He's got 12 employees. He's only open during the noon hour, but all of a sudden he's looking at a couple $1,000s a week, or every 2 weeks, that he no longer has to pay in taxes because of what he's doing with employee retention and keeping his employees going.
Yeah, that's valuable. And, California's, good luck being a restaurant in California as a business too. I'm sure I'm just trying to go kind of more logical steps here. Transit property, if you can find savings in a lesser tax state, more of a red state, I bet the savings that you might be able to find in, places like New York, California, probably.
Well, we could take a simple example. I had about 18 months ago, downtown St. Petersburg, where they built out a restaurant, existing place, $450,000 on the build out, and ended up saving them around just under $40,000 going forward after they finished that build out. And that was a lease situation.
Oh, wow. So you're able to find, I'm trying to figure out a good metaphor for you. Cause I was trying to figure out like the slasher, the cutter, you can just come in and just like see it. You can
magnifier.
You can see what no one else is seeing. Like, but you're not the guy that comes in and cuts the staff. You're not the guy that comes in and cuts, here, you need to get rid of this department. You're really you're discovering, you're finding buried treasure in a way. There's something there.
It's lost in hidden profits within your own bank statement and within your own company numbers. And so it's very much a diagnostic approach, just like going to the doctor, trying to figure out what's wrong with your health, or doing preventative maintenance for having good health.
Yeah, but even in that example, women go to the doctor a lot, but men don't do it. And they're not, most Americans are not proactive about it because 40% of Americans are obese. So I would say what makes the difference, if you're listening to this, you're probably like, well, I'll just get my accountant to look at this stuff. Here's the psychology behind that. Dave proactively looks for these things, where we try to proactively look for, like, hey, here's a new app, here's a new website. We try to do that on this show for more marketing area, or just kind of productivity hacks. For you, you're proactively looking. Accountants don't do that.
Accountants, there's a baseline.
They minimize risk.
Well, exactly. They have their top priority of get your taxes in correctly, and then if we can find different things to help you out.
That shouldn't even bring risk in. They think they're minimizing risk by eliminating whatever they can.
So what an accountant does, though, is an accountant generally they're your historian, and they are going to record what you give them. If you want to take advantage of hiring tax incentives, you don't go to your accountant ahead of time to find out if it's okay to hire people. Okay.
But people do that. Business owners do that, and it's crazy to me.
But where I'm trying to go is accountants. I team up with accountants. I love to team up with accountants because the areas that I go after are those areas that we refer to as specialized skills. Whether you're looking at property tax incentives or you're looking at research and development. We haven't touched on research and development incentives. Those are big. You can go back 3 years and get very nice checks on research and development work, whether you're in manufacturing or technology or whatever the case may be. All these things either require a specialized skill or a specialized resource, and unless you're in the Big 10 of the accounting firms. Not all these accounting firms are going to have these skills on staff. And so that's what I have on my team, is I have this skill set and these resources on my team in order to be able to put that information together and deliver it.
Oh, you're Liam Neeson in Taken. But finding money.
Is it though?
I don't know.
Is that the right?
I just wanted to say I have a certain amount of skills. You see where I'm going? It's still look. It's a business podcast, but we're also a comedy podcast.
Your premise has been taken.
Yeah, I'm. So tell me about the R&D, the research and development incentives. What incentives are there out there?
Well, generally, the easiest way to look at is you can look at the labor, the payroll, the associated payroll for a company. And if you're in manufacturing technology or anything that is developing anything, whether it's a widget or a service or whatever that case may be, that is new technology, that is something brand new, then you can take legitimately a piece of your payroll and get a tax credit for it. Now, understand the tax credit is the gold standard. That is a dollar for dollar trade-off when it comes to tax time. So if you owe $100,000 in taxes, but you have $25,000 in tax credits, your tax bill just dropped to $75,000. You get to keep that extra $25,000. So if your payroll is running $1 million a year and you're in manufacturing, you probably have $50,000 to $100,000 worth of tax credits available to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's huge. Another
employee, or that's retaining an employee.
You also work with a lot of doctors, a lot of the medical professionals. what I call the super professional kind of crowd, your medical, so doctors, dentists, lawyers, maybe. What's something that in that world you might know offhand that can help them?
Well, there's
Anybody that has a practice, let's call it that.
Yeah. So what you'll see with that in that space, you're going to look at two things. One is, what are they doing to make sure that their accounts receivable are flowing in a timely manner with insurance or with anything else that's going on? How do you take all of the wasted space out of that to improve the accounts receivable so the cash flow is strong? But the other piece of that is so many of these doctors buy their buildings. So you're back to the property incentives again, because they are actually spending more money on the interior than you say you would at an industrial site for a manufacturing company. So those numbers would actually go up for them.
Like leasing equipment or buying equipment and the inside?
Not leasing, but property buying is most definitely an opportunity for both the equipment and the building itself.
Because you get the depreciation tax.
Yes, and that's all changed under President Trump, where a lot of that is accelerated as well.
Coolest president of all time. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh.
So on running joke. It's just like it's something I like to go up to a table of my liberal friends and be like, "Hey, President Trump, coolest president of all time. All right, I'll be right back. I'll get some
Walk
drinks."
away, baby.
Yeah, and just
That's how
be
you
like,
do it.
or who brought that guy? You know.
That you look at he and with the tax change under him, things really accelerated. But with the CARES Act, it's like on steroids. And so I guess one of the biggest cautions I offer to people are optimisms is that if you did something in 1998 didn't work, or 2004 or 2016, the entire game changed with the CARES Act and with COVID-19. So many things changed that if you made a decision in 2016 because you didn't think it was going to benefit you, and I tried that already, no, you have to go back and check again, because now they have opened it up to say, how do we get money back into the economy?
So I want to make sure we have a call to action on how people can reach you if they're listening. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So the best way to get a hold of me is, I don't know how you're working on your show here, but we can either email.
No, we try not to edit anything. So if you're, we'll keep all this in. No, that's the beauty of. We've talked to offline. I'm telling him he needs to get like a 10-minute podcast, put it on LinkedIn every day, just direct to camera. Here's something about the CARES.
Give something back. People love getting info back.
And then you obviously can't be so specific on there that you're giving away the milk for free. It's kind of how we feel on this show. Like, it is, some people have signed us to work for them after listening to this, because you can't really bullshit your way through hundreds of episodes. We'd be great actors. We'd be Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine,
dude?
But
like...
all these lines we've memorized?
We'd be Bill the Butcher or My Left Foot, whatever he was in that. But
so a couple things. One, I do have a tool, complimentary tool that I'm willing to share with anybody that wants to reach out and contact me, that a business owner or professional could go through that tool in about 5 minutes, and they could identify what programs are out there and how much money they may have available to them.
Let me promote this for you. I've seen it. It's awesome. It works. You can put your business in there. Look, it's not.
I will be doing it.
It's not the cutest UI UX of anything, but he made it.
Okay, good.
You made this thing.
It's been bumped up on steroids since you saw it.
What?
Well,
I mean you put.
Was it after Law took a big dump on it? And
no,
said,
I was just like this.
I
asked him, "What do you do in a meeting? Do you show that? Do you go through it with them? Do you type it with them, or do you go, hey, I have this algorithm here. 1 second. How do you do it?" That's all I was helping him through. Like, what's the dance? You know.
It's not pretty. It's just intended to give you quick results.
Hey, if it works, I will trade something that works quickly over how it animates into every time.
I was just going through what that process, like, I was on the psychology level of that, right? Like, look, if you went to a lawyer and they just were like, hold on, and you saw them in the other room on LegalZoom or something, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Let me look this up.
But I mean, that's kind of what IP lawyers do in a way. But I would say I think it speaks volumes that you saw this as a need. You saw this as something that adds a lot of value because it quickly brings results within within one meeting. So you're not. It's almost like you want to not waste your time or their time, but you can't. There's no way you can hold on to every kind of available, let's call it discovery incentive out there.
No, I'm there. When I'm in there, it's like, is there meat on the bone? How much meat is it? 4,000, 40,000, 400,000. Do you want us to go get it? Here's where it's at.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to make sure we get the call to action. What's the best way people can reach you?
So either please send me an email at dave@abundantbs, as in businesssolutions.com, or please send me a text to 727-258-1424, and I will respond to you with I will send you a link that you can connect on. There's no obligation. There's no risk. It takes you less than 5 minutes to fill out the assessment. And at the end of the assessment, it will tell you how much money is available to you out there in savings, benefits, credits, whatever the case may be.
And it won't be that thing where it's like, hey man, nothing, no money down, any of that stuff. And then you're going to get a bunch of like junk mail.
Yeah.
No.
Like you're not trying to get people's data. You're honestly just asking them a few questions that you're not trying to get something like
Just pay, and then I'll tell you all the things you can improve about.
There's so many of those like fake intro calls where they're, even if they don't get you as a client, they've got you in a ClickFunnels rabbit hole, and you're like, fuck,
got your email address, idiot.
Oh, I've unsubscribed. I didn't know I signed up for 40 other ones too. So
I'm not doing that. What you'll do is you'll have an opportunity at the end to say, yes, I want more information, or no, I don't want more information.
So, how can business owners find savings, benefits, and profit enhancing opportunities available to them? Like how can they be proactive in a similar way?
Well, I guess I'm not clear on your question. Can you try again?
How can business owners be more proactive to be a little bit more like you, I guess?
Well, I guess, the one thing is to recognize that specialists exist for a reason out there.
Yeah.
And you've got to continue to tap on different specialists' shoulders and asking those questions. I think we're going to see a massive shift here in the next 6 to 15 months. It's already happening. Again, it's all because it's COVID-19, pre-COVID and post-COVID. So the best way they can do it right now is looking at, okay, you referred to it as the pivot. It's so much more than that. How can I bring in automation that I never had before that I can now take advantage of because of the things that have changed? We are going to see we've seen spectacular adoption in the last 8 weeks. The amount of innovation that'll come out in the next 6 months is going to be spectacular. But the other piece of that is, where do they best outsource? If you are a doctor, why are you taking care of whatever it may be that has nothing to do with medicine? If you are a restaurateur, focus on running the best restaurant possible. Don't focus on areas that are not your core competency. So I would say at this point in time, the best way they can do it is say, what is my core competency? And outside my core competency, how do I get better on either automation or outsourcing?
Right. When I had my agency, it was like the first two things I did was I'm terrible at accounting and I hate it and I don't care about it. And so got my accountant. But the first thing I did was business attorney. Because digital, everything's tangible or intangible. So it's like, I want tight contracts. I spent a lot of time, and I would get them both together once a quarter for a while and go explain how you're going to explain to me like I'm 5.
Explain how laws are made.
Because your accountant and business attorney should kind of know a little bit what each other's doing in a way, and show me how we're going to set up a holdings company that's going to protect this, that we're going to have a feeder system. I don't get it. So stuff like that. But I wanted to come out of the gate and be like, I don't want to have too much pride and say, I know what this is, or try to Google me right, But the last question I want to make sure I ask before we're running out of time is, we ask all our guests, we try to ask everybody, obviously you're an expert in your field. I bet we could probably talk to you for about 3 hours, and I want to get you back on a lot to kind of give us whatever new things. Maybe on a monthly basis, you come on and just go, hey, y'all don't know about this. Y'all don't know about this. Here's some cool.
Sounds ever changing.
Right.
What you're doing.
Right. And always a need. But I would say, what's the advice you would give your 13-year-old self? You could go back in a time machine, go talk to yourself, and then you got like a minute, and then you got to bounce. If you can talk to your 13-year-old self, what would you tell it? Yourself?
I would be determined and be persevere in what you want to do. There's nothing today that you cannot learn if you have a hard work habit, if you're willing to ask for help, if you're willing to fail and learn from your failures. There's pretty much nothing you can't do. You whether you want to own a business, be a doctor, travel the world, there's so much resource out there. It's available to you if you'll work hard, ask for help, and learn.
Yeah.
And you're going to fail. You're going to fail a ton. You're going to learn more from failing than you are from succeeding.
Oh, trust us. We know.
Yeah. I mean, the
We're
reason
on
we
the
do
board.
it's kind of why we do this show. We want to learn from people that have been there, and we also
We're looking for people to fail harder than us. The ones that are worse off than we
our
are.
president was bankrupt 4 times. I mean, there's failure all around us, but he became president. Still, I mean,
So inspiring.
he's the best president of all time. But I'm saying,
Did he learn from it?
I'll say these opinions are not reflective of Dave's. But thanks for
Or
coming
mine.
on.
Throw me in there.
No, you've got to make America great again hat right off camera. All right, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunity.
I'll give you
questions. Happy to do so.
I'll give you a ring sometime this week, brother.
Very good. Thanks.
All right, see ya.
Sweat equity.